Hello everybody and welcome back to Title's Corner. Welcome to a game called Dagon. This game came out in 2021, I believe. And this is supposed to be a game tailored towards H.P. Lovecraft's mythical character Cthulhu. And it's supposed to be like a psychological horror, mind-bending twist of game. So that's all I know about it right now, but it looked really cool and interesting, so let's get into it. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Are you dying? Whoa, what just happened? During the game you encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journeys, others revealing interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look at the Elder sign. Okay, so this button. Okay. Lovecraft letters. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would under the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing conversation. As my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute, I cannot bear to talk much now, and am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhold Kleiner, December 23rd, 1917. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day. But his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for the present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Selected letters 1929 to 1931. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books, and selected letters can be found online. Some readers consider them his most important legacy. You can read the discovered trivia immediately or go back to them later in the main menu. Turn off displaying trivia, whatever.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Oh, that's fun.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
Let's take that off there.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Oh dear.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Oh.
The Great War was at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Oh, what flag is that?
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
I might have to look up that flag, because I don't know what that means. Oh, pretty. Is the sun coming up? Because I don't see a sun to cast that, but okay.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
With a flask.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
What the fuck? Ew. That's a little gross. I don't like how that's convulsing.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Ew.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Yummy.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
Oh my god. There's an upside down octopus over there. Or squid. I don't fucking know. That's a squid.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
This is just
the sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
This is just gross. Origins of Dagon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Owen S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural hole in literature. H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. Oh, so it's an island. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl, and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells in his own world. I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old, but I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. The Dweller in Darkness, Lovecraft, 1927, Donald Wandre. This is just disgusting. Kinda gross. Ew, has to make the noises too.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Oh, there's a squid above me and I don't like
Through
it.
some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Huge. That one's huge.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things. For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Oh, God. Can you imagine this just be weird? This would be so weird.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
This is awful. What is that? What? Is that a squid? That can't be a squid. Look how big its head would be. Jesus.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Oh, that's a skeleton. Those are all skeletons. Oh, weird, but okay. Oh. Lovely. That looks like a giant-ass crab leg. Probably is.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Where the hell did you encamp?
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Yeah, that's
an intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend,
I'm a smart ass.
I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Okay.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
I held something that was weird.
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Oh. The loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point where he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias. Cafeterias, and was ordered to, hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of paper scattered across the floor. Interesting.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
Oh, I can't look
I
down
felt
yet.
myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost,
You sure that's not just
and
the
of
ocean?
Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness.
I mean, it could be.
As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Declivity. Sorry. I like proper English. It's funny.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath,
I don't like
gazing
that noise.
into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
You couldn't see that when you were up on the... Well, maybe not, I guess.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I
why.
cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Probably.
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Do we got a hint anywhere? Some more about his life? No? Okay. No.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
Fine. It's not really winding out of sight because it ends right there, and then over there it ends a little bit behind the monolith.
Across the chasm,
That's a
the
little
wavelets
bit,
washed the
okay.
base of the Cyclopean monolith,
Cyclopean monolith.
on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me
How did I
and
get up
unlike
this
anything
high?
I'd ever seen in books,
What the fuck?
consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Oh.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
I don't want to.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
Interesting.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well.
This is like Atlantis, the lost city.
Of their
but
faces
not.
and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint, grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seemed to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Possibly. But also, you said this came up from the ocean.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
You saw
With only a
what?
slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Last, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
What?
I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Oh gosh, everything's shaking now.
I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
You sang? Okay. I'm going mad.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of
dead
thunder
now.
and other tones which nature utters only in
How
her
big
wildest
that guy
moments.
is. Oh, jeez.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital,
What?
brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
Really?
I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Wow, this is weird. Okay, so H.P. Lovecraft was crazy.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Oh. Oh, Dagon's a fish god. Well, he probably wasn't crazy. If that really did happen, then he probably just went mad with starvation and dehydration and stuff like that. Anyway, Dagon. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem in an underworld prison warded in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Interesting. Interessante. There we go.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
The Marketeer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends, among others. He started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, or cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architect of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. Source: Lovecraft Studies, Volume 7, Number 1, H.P. Lovecraft, S.T. Joshi. Or Hoshi. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Acram House. Although he greatly contributed to the Y'all, I can't read with this text. With this font, apparently. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine, Derleth was a devout Catholic, to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Interesting. The scientist. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted in defense of Dagon that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th and early 20th century, scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice, among other things. It was gender-specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Synonym.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
And I'm back in my room.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to. Having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition. The prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as of any other. Source: The Spirit of a Vision, Lovecraft's Letters to Zelia Brown, Reed, Bishop, H.P. Lovecraft, Sean Brainerd, and Andrew Lemon St. John. S.T. Joshi. Sorry. I got distracted by a thing.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war.
Are you sure you didn't just, imagine it?
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
Oh, don't make me think about
worshipping
that.
their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite.
What is that?
I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Whoa. Whoa. That's kind of cool, though. Although he's fucking going mad. He went mad. He's already mad. He's already down there.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
I don't want to go over there. H.P. Lovecraft, you're
It
a
shall
real
not
person.
find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Oh. What the fuck? Oh my god. Well, that was strange. You know what? Why don't we leave some feedback? Do you recommend this game? Yes, I do. This was a very interesting look into the mind of H.P. Lovecraft. I'll finish that in a minute. That was not a very in-depth review, but it's fine. Can you go away now? Thank you. So, that was interesting. That was actually a very ingenious game. You got a good look into the mind of H.P. Lovecraft. Well, not a good look, but some history behind him, and a look into the game, into him. Someone was a little crazy, and someone went a little mad there at the end. But I feel like a lot of poets went mad. Which is kind of weird. That was weird, to say the least, but it was cool for a... I mean, I know what they were going for. If they were going for a more, like, in-depth game, obviously it would have been, like, super bad. And I would actually like to have a more in-depth game into, like, the mind of H.P. Lovecraft. But that was a good, like, little, lesson, like, history lesson type of game on H.P. Lovecraft and, like, the history of Dagon and stuff like that. So, thank you for, watching this video, and if you liked it, give it a like and comment, and also subscribe, because I got much better games on the channel and coming out on the channel. Now that's not to say this wasn't a bad game. It was a good game. It was just very short and very, like, it wasn't as much horror as I thought it would be, as the description made it out to be, but it was okay. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see all you in the next one.